Hello and welcome back to Patrick Replies, the show where I respond to your questions and comments about the latest video. We're doing this in the living room this time because it's Christmas time, and this is where the Christmas tree is, and want to be festive. I'm shooting this the night before I head upstate to my parents' house for Christmas. And yeah, we're talking about the latest video, which is what is the most 80s movie ever. And if I'm being honest, I'm kind of dreading seeing what the comments and questions that Emma collected for this one are, because the thing about this video is, as I say in the video, it's basically about like 1,200 movies. Like, I'm trying to talk about an entire decade of cinema, and I know that every single comment in the comments section is just going to be a variation of, why didn't you talk about this movie? I can't believe you left out this one. This one should have won. Why didn't you mention this? You know, I have to admit, in the month and a half that it took me to make this video, I just did not have time to watch all 1,000 plus movies released during the 1980s. I did the best I could, and I feel pretty good about my findings. But you know what? For various reasons, I probably left out something that you think should have been included. And we're gonna hear what people have to say about that. Now, as always, we are going to begin with questions from the Ask Patrick channel on our Discord server. You can get access to that just by joining our Patreon. And so if you want to ask a question for a future video, this is the way to get it in there. And also, there's lots of fun reasons to join the Patreon. It helps support the channel also. But so we're going to start with those, and then once we finish these, we will jump over to the comments that Emma pulled from the comments section of the video. Okay, so our first question comes from Sambo is Person. Asking, is the We Heart Hartnett / Can't Get Enough of Keanu podcast ever coming back at this point? So if you watched our live stream this past Sunday on the 18th, both Matt and Jay Torpy were on there with me, and this did come up and we did address it. The best answer I can give you is, I don't know. What basically happened with the podcast was we would always record it in person. And then the pandemic hit, and we couldn't do it in person, and I had to figure out a new way to make the videos. So I said, let's put this on pause, and we'll figure it out later. And then when I finally returned to the city, and we could meet up in person, Matt moved away from the city. And then Jake had a baby. Well, his wife had a baby, but he had to take care of the baby. And now Jake has 2 babies. And Matt still doesn't live in the city, and the videos have become more complicated and time-consuming than ever. And so, yes, I would love to finish it at some point, but it's also, I just don't have any extra time, and figuring out how to do that, and then also dealing with, like, booking guests and stuff like that, is just something that I don't have, like, the extra mental bandwidth for, or just time in my schedule for. So hopefully at some point, but I don't really have any better answer than that. Next is Gabby DeBoer. Thank you, Gabby, for clarifying how to pronounce your last name, which I got wrong last time. Watching the new episode and your answer about Lumet got me started. What are... I'm gonna sneeze. Okay. Watching the new episode and your answer about Lumet got me started. What are other directors like Sidney Lumet that you'd put in the great craftsmen with eclectic bodies of work, but without being seen as these great auteurs camp? Personally, my instinctive thought was Richard Donner. I fully agree. I mean, The Omen, Superman, Goonies, Lady Hawk, all the Lethal Weapon movies, yeah. And in a very hot take, potentially Ridley Scott. I would agree with Ridley Scott. I do think there are some thematic links across his filmography, you know, like, you know, hating rich people and stuff like that. But yeah, Ridley Scott is very much just like a consummate craftsman. Also, I think it would be a really fun video to see you talk about these kinds of directors. I mean, obviously, if you're going back to like older cinema, there's like way more. You could argue like Billy Wilder, someone like that. I feel like Peter Weir kind of, you know, not to take anything away from him, say he's not an auteur, but, you know, he's got an eclectic body of work. Picnic at Hanging Rock, Dead Poets Society, The Truman Show, Master and Commander. Honestly, like, kind of John McTiernan, even if he did mostly make, like, action thrillers. Also in the action genre, Martin Campbell, I would totally put up there. There's a lot. You know what? John Turteltaub. Let's talk about him. Oh, speaking of directors, what other directors would you like to do retrospectives on? Let's talk about Schumacher. Makes me want a Joel Schumacher retrospective. The thing about Schumacher is, I assume a lot of people watching this listen to the podcast Blank Check, and they've been asked about covering Schumacher before. And the thing that they always say that I totally agree with is there's just so many movies. I mean, I know I did Coppola, but like, at least Coppola has like better movies. I mean, Joel Schumacher is fun and interesting and has a very eclectic body of work. As research for the 80s video, I watched St. Elmo's Fire for the first time, and that movie sucks. It was shockingly bad, in my opinion. Pinball Witch says, I would absolutely buy A Night of the Coconut Blu-ray, especially if there are commentaries. Scanning through, it looks like several people brought up the Night of the Coconut Blu-ray thing. We talked about it a lot on the live stream. Even Dave came on the live stream and said that he would do A Night of the Coconut Blu-ray. So we got to figure that out. Apparently people are interested. I will say right now, the bonus features for the movie are up on Nebula. 3 commentary tracks and an extended scene, so go check that out. Okay, also with the Zemeckis question, I personally loved the 6 updates video you did a couple years ago. If you did another like that, could be a place to add more on Robert Zemeckis' recent work. Yeah, I could, I guess, do another just like big update on like filmmakers, franchises, topics, stuff like that. So that's an option. Ciela says, reply for Patrick Replies. What you drinking? Well, at the moment, water. I actually just had a cocktail. I had a Negroni a few minutes ago, but I finished it, and now I'm drinking water. But in our last episode, I was drinking the Sexton single malt whiskey. It will not seem to autofocus on that. Anyway, it's a very good Irish whiskey. That I was introduced to by the hosts of the Film and Whiskey podcast. They sent me a bottle after I was a guest on the show. It's great. Long question here that I'm going to paraphrase from Red is here, basically asking about the Harry Potter movies and the interesting stylistic differences with the different installments, with the very different directors and cinematographers and composers who worked on all of them. That is totally true, especially compared to almost all other big blockbuster franchises. It is wild how different the Harry Potter movies are stylistically from one another. The visual style changes kind of aggressively in some installments, like especially in number 6, Half-Blood Prince that Bruno Del Bono shot. Yeah, really interesting stuff there. Kind of a model of what I'd love to see other franchises do. The thing about doing that as a video is that I think for obvious reasons, I'm gonna steer clear of doing like a Harry Potter video. I don't think we need to give J.K. Rowling any more free airtime, even if it's just talking about the visual aspects of the movies. But this is a genuinely interesting topic, and it is pretty wild the further we get from that series, like what they were able to pull off that seems so different than every franchise now. Okay, Pinball Witch is back again, saying, one thing I'm really into is how video essayists have scenes similar to the early punk scenes, with lots of cool people who are interacting and influencing each other. You've done things like collabs and lending your voice to other people's works. What is that like for you as a creator? Anyone you'd love to do more work with? I personally love the Mission Impossible ones. You did movies with Mikey a lot. I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie. I think the collab that Mikey and I did, probably one of the best collabs ever. I think we'd made something pretty cool. Not that I was around for like the early punk scenes, but I feel like the big difference there is, those bands were all like in the same cities, whether like London or New York, and actually saw each other in person and all of that. Well, we're all just like locked away alone, in our homes, just working on our videos and occasionally interacting on Twitter. It doesn't feel a lot like a scene. I know that there's kind of like cliques in the video essay world, like some like groups that are like tight friends and stuff like that. I have a lot of people that I'm friendly with. And obviously through like the Nebula stuff, I've met more people in person and hung out with them and have gotten to know them. The people that I work with are mostly not people in the video essay world. They're just friends I know through other parts of my life. I'm glad it seems from the outside like this is a scene, because from the inside, I guess, it doesn't feel like a scene. All these people should move to New York. Yell at all the video essayists you watch to move to New York. I'm sick of them being in random other places. Okay, this question is from, is it Kovla? This is definitely an Irish name that I honestly don't know if I've ever seen spelled out. I'm gonna lose so many like Irish credibility points for this. I hope my mom doesn't watch this. She will be disappointed with me. Is it Kovla? Please, not in the comment section, on Discord, please tell me if I'm totally off with the pronunciation and how to pronounce this. I want to get this right. Anyway, asks, the Zack Snyder video has me thinking about 4:3 aspect ratios. Movies and TV in 4:3 were common in ye old days, but it basically isn't a thing anymore. Should it come back? Wes Anderson, Xavier Dolan, and Joel Cohen have all used skinnier aspect ratios, but they don't make tentpole blockbusters. Did Zack's Justice League show that a skinnier frame can still look good today? So obviously, mostly with like more indie-ish movies like A24 things, 4:3 has become a lot more common just in the past decade than it was for a very long time. But I think the bigger influence than the Snyder Cut is Christopher Nolan and the way he uses IMAX, because Nolan is the guy who pretty much like popularized the use of IMAX for like big narrative movies. And if they shoot in IMAX and then you see it in like a proper IMAX theater, it pretty much is like a square aspect ratio. Like if you watch like the IMAX sequences in Dunkirk or Tenet, or like I just saw the IMAX Oppenheimer preview before Avatar, which is way cooler than the Oppenheimer trailer that they just released online. Those are basically squares, and those are big budget blockbusters. Chris says, hey Patrick, will we be seeing your parents again soon? Well, I think you got your answer to that in the latest video. And Swivelmaster says, actually, this makes me wonder, is Patrick Explains as we know it dead because Evil Patrick was the one explaining all along? Well, I'm assuming you've seen the end of the new video, so stay tuned. By the way, sorry if there's a bunch of annoying whistling or clanging in the background. You know, it's a New York apartment, radiators and pipes in the winter, that's how it is. The Duke of Tumwater asks, who would be your top 3 villain choices to appear in the next Batman movie, and who would you like to see play them? Let's see, who would be cool? Hugo Strange would be cool. I recently read Prey for the first time, a classic Hugo Strange story. Mr. Freeze, and let's say Clayface. I would love to see some of like the weirder comic bookier guys. By the way, I'm talking like, you know, more modern Clayface, not like Clayface 2, the one with like the weird like bubble head. I'm talking like big shape changing, you know, Clayface. Who should play them? I'm bad at fan casting. Ask Nando. Pinball Witch, back again. You talk about movies most of the time, and you mentioned last video you don't really play video games, but is there any TV shows you've been really into recently? Oh my god, yeah. In my annual best of the year videos, I always have a section on TV shows. I just, a couple days ago, finished watching the season of Bad Sisters, which I really enjoyed. Very good Irish show, with truly the most loathsome fictional character I've encountered in years. As everyone knows, because I did a whole podcast about it, Andor, rules, love it. At this point, I don't want to just list all of my favorite shows of the year, because I'll get to that in a video, and I still have stuff to catch up on. But yeah, I watch lots of stuff. Okay, JBlee44 says, in your post-crisis Batman of the 80s and 90s read-through, who is your favorite writer? Who is your favorite artist? Favorite artist, I think, is Norm Brayfogle. He is so good. And favorite writer, I mean, it might be Alan Grant. And they obviously worked together a lot. Yeah, let's say Alan Grant and Norm Brayfogle. M. Lee says, only half jokingly, When are you going to collab with Scott the Woz? Considering the Charles saga with something like Borderline Forever, I feel like you two could create a great project. As I've said before, I barely watch any YouTube. I think I've seen like 1 or 2 Scott the Woz videos. They seem fun. I've been told that he has like lore and narratives and stuff, but I mean the problem is I just like I'm not a video game person, and so I'm sure the videos are great. They're not topics that I would just generally click on a video for. So I don't know. Tell me where to start, what to watch. Yeah, I am open to a collaboration. Juhana says, what is the biggest I wish I had known this you've had after you had finished a video? There are too many. They happen every single video, and honestly, the only way I can like live with myself is to just sort of block them out and move on and not live consumed by regret about the things that I wish I had known or put into the videos. So I don't have any fresh in my mind, which I guess is good, that they're not like haunting me at all times. 12pack 88 says, how large is your movie collection compared to your comic graphic novel collection? And if it's large enough, would you ever consider doing a special video on it after you've done the comic collection video, whenever that may be? I'd personally enjoy it since I watched a ton of Blu-ray collection videos back in the day. Well, this is funny because if you tuned into the recent live stream, at the beginning of that, I did actually like explain my Blu-ray collection. I mean, not like one by one. I have to buy so many Blu-rays just for work, like to rip the movie files to get the footage to edit with. Like every video, I have to buy like 10 Blu-rays. And so the ones in just like regular, like ugly blue plastic cases, because those take up too much space, years ago, I got rid of all the cases and I put just like the covers and the discs in these little sleeves that I have in bins. Like it's like a card catalog, just like flipping through. I have like 4 bins of those. And then all of my specialty labels like, you know, Steelbooks, Criterions, Arrow Video, box sets, I have on this shelf over here. Do people really want to see me go through every one and be like, and up next, it's this, and now we're in the G's, and now I don't know. I'm open to it. Jan the Man says, kind of obscure comic book question from one comics geek to another. This isn't obscure. Which 1990s Alex Ross prestige superhero comic do you like more, Marvel's or Kingdom Come? I love them both. I think I'd give a slight edge to Marvel's. As someone who's currently reading all of Astro City for the first time, I really like the Kurt Busiek, like man on the street perspective on superhero stuff. And while I love Kingdom Come, I really do. And since I'm not someone who was brought up attending church, the like biblical Catholicism stuff in Kingdom Come probably doesn't mean as much to me as it does to others. Like I appreciate it, but it doesn't hit me as hard. But yeah, love them both. Masterpieces. Here is Pinball Witch once again. When will we get a video about Goncharov? It seems weird that you've never mentioned this absolute classic before now. I was going to say, I think the Goncharov stuff is fun. I will say what I think is very funny about it is like this movie that they've kind of like, you know, made up, the fake movie Goncharov. It feels like it was like all the stuff about it was made up by people who have never actually seen a Martin Scorsese movie and are just aware of him as like the nice cinema grandpa online. What they've created feels more like, I don't know, like a Bertolucci movie or something. Anyway, it's funny. Johanna says, can I have some of the cookies? No, they're all for me. 12pack 88. As I'm writing this, today is the last day for Barnes & Noble's 50% off Criterion sale. I already received my haul for this year, but I'm wondering if there are any Criterion titles you would recommend to someone getting into the collection for the first time. Like maybe a top 5. I think it just depends on what movies you personally like. It's not like I have ones where I'm like, this is the best transfer they've ever done. I don't know, I just buy the movies I like. But anyway, yeah, sure, here are some recommendations. The World of Wong Kar-wai box set rules. I only recently saw these for the first time this year, and I got this for my birthday back in September. The box set of Kieślowski's Three Colors trilogy. Great movies. Okay, Carol Ballard's The Black Stallion, masterpiece. Nicholas Roeg's Don't Look Now. Stanley Donen's Charade. What a delightful movie. And Brian De Palma's Blowout. So yeah, there's some that I like. Just watch those movies if you haven't seen them. Dr. Turkey asks, what happened to all that stuff you got in the Mr. Beast video? That is a very long story, and if I ever meet you in person, ask me, and I'll tell you. Elliot Gammons asks, what were your thoughts on the Guardians holiday special? I honestly have not had a chance to watch it yet. I'll probably watch it within the next couple days. Paris says, first off, I'm a longtime fan and adore your work. Thank you. Recently I discovered, or rather forgot about, the TV adaptation of Minority Report. Wasn't that on Fox? I think it was. What film do you think would fit nicely as a TV series, and what absolutely wouldn't? I mean, I think most movies should just be movies. Honestly, I think most TV shows that now should be movies. P, smiley face, says, loved the new video. Thank you. Any thoughts on what the most 80s TV show or comic book might be? Here's the thing. The answer for TV show and comic book, probably both things that I've never seen, and that because I wasn't really around back then. Like, I don't know, Knight Rider? I've never seen an episode of it, but I'm aware of it. It seems pretty 80s. Not Littlest Pet Shop says, obviously the video focused on 80s America and American movies, but did you consider anything from outside the US? Though this probably would have made the video even longer. Basically, what I did was I went to Box Office Mojo and looked at all of the like wide release movies in America each year. The like 120 highest grossing wide releases. You had to have a cutoff point. And plus, since we were mostly focusing on like American culture and the American film industry, there's only so much time, and this video went like a month over schedule anyway. Zim Show says, if Rocky IV is the most of its time 80s movie, what do you think is the most timeless 80s movie, or movie that has aged the best? I mean, you can't really pick one for that. There's plenty of them. There's so many movies from the 80s that like could have been made at any time, especially when you get into like period pieces. Like I mentioned, you know, the Indiana Jones movies, which those are pretty timeless. You could make a case for like The Right Stuff, you know, A Room with a View. What is 80s about that? Yeah, there's like a million of them. Stormageddon says, what is your favorite movie of 2022? You'll have to wait until my best of 2022 video in, I don't know, a couple months. What movie are you looking forward to most in 2023? That one's easy. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, Part 1, number 1 with the bullet. There is no movie in existence I am more excited about. Death Ray Tech says, if Tom Cruise and James Cameron were to somehow make a film together, where would you want to see them film? I don't know, in space? The thing is, they were going to make a movie together. I mean, Cameron wasn't going to direct it, but back in like 2010, when Guillermo del Toro was going to direct, came very close to making At the Mountains of Madness, starring Tom Cruise, Cameron was going to be a producer on it. So they almost worked together. Can I just say I still wish that would happen? One of the most tragic movies that didn't happen ever. Look, I will watch anything Tom Cruise does. I will watch anything James Cameron does. Of course, I would love to see them work together. If Tom Cruise is going to be, I don't know, another clone of Quaritch who shows up in Avatar 5, I'm into it. Give me whatever you got. Pinball Witch, once again, what is the most 80s movie that wasn't released in the 80s? First of all, we're not counting any like 80s pastiche movies, you know, like Super 8. Mary Harron's American Psycho might be the best movie about the 80s, so let's say that. Okay, that concludes the Discord questions. Now going over to the YouTube comments section. JMD501 says, no war games are real genius. To me, they really nail the politics and look of the 80s. Yeah, they were considered. I decided not to include them. Douglas Watt is also disappointed that there was no Real Genius. Sorry, Douglas Watt. I like Real Genius. It's a good movie. Val Kilmer's very good in it. It features Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears at the very end. Yeah, didn't make the cut. Sorry. Matthew Park. I I think Emma just picked a lot of comments about Real Genius because she likes Real Genius a lot. So Emma, I'm sorry. Also Matthew Park, I'm sorry. And Dennis Morich? I'm sorry, Dennis, tell me how to pronounce your name. Or is it Denis? I'd love to hear Patrick's reasoning for why the quintessential hard ticket to Hawaii was not included on this list. I will tell you, because it was not on those lists of wide release movies in the US. There you go. Did not get a wide theatrical release. Didn't qualify. AJ says, I know this is still subjective, but I really hoped to see these mentioned. BMX Bandits, Rad, Thief, The Legend of Billie Jean, or The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. Any of these would have easily been in my top selections for most 80s. You know, as I said, we're going to get a lot of comments and questions like this. And I will say, these were considered for various reasons. I did not include them. Again, there were well over 1,000 movies. Whiskey Canuck says, for the politics section, another aspect to judge the 80s-ness of a movie is how influenced it is by, or even directly about, the Vietnam War. That is a good point and something I considered, because you have, for instance, like Oliver Stone movies that are serious dramas about Vietnam, like Platoon, or Born on the 4th of July. And then you have things like Rambo First Blood Part 2, or I think these would, would kind of edge it out, the Chuck Norris Missing in Action trilogy, which are basically about, like, let's go back and win Vietnam years later. The specter of Vietnam did loom over, over the 80s. And so it was a thing that I did consider. But of all of those Vietnam movies, the Missing in Action series with Chuck Norris seemed the most 80s. But if I wanted to represent Chuck Norris, Invasion USA felt to me like the better pick. Look, these were tough choices, but someone had to make them, and that was me. If you don't like my conclusions, post more comments that I will not read. This is just a comment for Emma. Petra. Hey Emma, I really enjoyed your segment about the Guardians of Ga'Hoole, and I hope we see more of you in future videos. Well, I hope you watched the live stream, because Emma was there. Patrick, do you find you prefer movies or shows with happy or tragic endings? I strongly prefer the former, but I know a lot of people go hard for tragedy. The really pretentious answer is to say, like, I prefer whatever ending is truest to the story being told. But I'm not going to say that. I don't know, maybe I give like the slightest edge to happy ending, but I'm never really gonna like not watch something because it might have a tragic ending. So no, I don't have a strong preference either way. Okay, Crowbar brings up one of my stupid mistakes in this video. For some reason, I threw an extra syllable into composer Vince DiCola's name. I just looked at it and for some reason was reminded of people I've known named Di Nicola and just decided that there should be an extra N-I in there. I don't know, I'm stupid. This video was hard to write and my brain was broken. So Vince DiCola, yes, also did the score and co-wrote the soundtrack for Transformers the movie. I feel like he's one of the iconic 80s composers, very much in the vein of Marauder. Yeah, that makes sense. And also as far as Transformers the movie goes, the one that I actually came closer to including was Masters of the Universe, in terms of like, movies that were basically based on 80s toys. But, other than just like the existence of it, Masters of the Universe just didn't, score highly enough in different categories, didn't make the cut, and I don't think Transformers would either, other than like the music and being a Transformers movie. Also, Rad should have been in the place of Thrashin'. Yes, I've heard this from several people. I don't know what to tell you. I did watch Rad. I chose Thrashin'. Still didn't win. Taylor's Robots with Taylor Alexander once again thinks I should have included Rad. Suddenly, after going like 30-something years and never hearing a single person mention the movie Rad, all of these Rad fans come out of the woodwork to yell at me. Too bad, Rad fans. Andrew Bear, another Rad fan. There are a lot of these people. Sorry. Echo, name that I'm gonna mispronounce. Says there should have also been a category for total amount of sweat in ounces. I know that's related to hard bodies, but these clips really made the sweat feel like a distinct character. Though practically, this would just have given the winner even more of a lead. Yeah, a lot of sweat in those movies. People were sweating up a storm. I mean, because there was a lot of like physical activity, a lot of boxing and action and dancing. So yes, there was a lot of sweat. Oh my God. Oh my God, they keep mentioning Rad. Oh my God. Who the fuck cares about Rad? It still wouldn't have won. Get over it. Okay, more Real Genius. Okay, here's my favorite comment in the whole video so far. From Dre. What about this movie? I can't believe you didn't mention this one. Exactly. That's what this is like. Okay, finally, a comment that's not yelling at me about something. Unit 3000-21 says, holy shit, man, this might be your best vid. I'm just stunned. I'm sorry I had my doubts about the coconut or whatever. PHW is obviously top contender for YouTube, MTV. Thank you. The thing that's becoming very clear about this experience right now is that I'm still so exhausted from making that video and from just dealing with like the sheer absurd workload of it all, that people complaining about stuff, I'm just like, I have no energy and no patience to listen to any of these complaints. I'm done with this video. I'm finished. I want to move on with my life. I don't care if you're mad I didn't mention some movie you like. Make your own video, whatever. This, again, I made up silly nonsense rules for all this stuff. I had a bonus Kenny Loggins round where I just threw points at movies. Like, who cares? Derpy Kirby says, what do you think about the director's cut of Rocky IV? I haven't watched it. Sorry. Shadovich says, I will pay any amount of money I have to hear Hank's unedited Reagan take. Name your price, bring the hammer down. I will say there's a little bit, I think there's like one or two more sentences to the Reagan monologue. I cut it in the video where I did for comedic effect. Like, this is just the right amount to imply that there's a lot more coming. I will tell you, my dad could go on much longer. So all you have to do is, actually, no, I was about to say, find my dad in person. Do not track down my parents and go to their house. They would not appreciate that. I don't know, maybe my dad can start a podcast. That'd be funny. Mr. Flipper Invader 792 says, I want to hear Patrick's dad going into full detail about his Reagan rant. People want to hear Hank's thoughts. Sophia Rowe says, okay, so who's going to start the petition for Patrick to do this for literally every other decade? Thomas Querdon says, would love other retrospective analysis videos like this for the 90s, 2000s, etc. I've had the idea for the 80s video since like May 2020. I came up with this idea like during lockdown in the like earlier days of the pandemic. And my intention was always that this would be the first of a recurring series, getting to like 70s movies, 90s movies. Anyway, yes, I fully intend to make this a series, but now I have also learned how much time and work goes into one of these. So I've got to figure out when I can like conceivably do this again. Maybe this could be like a Nebula series. Maybe they could give me a budget to make it so I could hire like a whole team of researchers. Because like the amount of research that Raven pulled for this was insane. She did so much work on this. Shades MP5 brings up the fact that I didn't even mention Earth Girls Are Easy. I also, other people have mentioned this that I have seen. People are upset about this. I did consider it. I chose not to include it. Look, I don't know what to tell you. Actually, I do know what to tell you. The answer is that, again, there were over 1,000 movies, and I am only human, and this took a really long time to make, and things had to get left out. I'm sorry. Montgomery Lol says, I want a video of Patrick talking about all the dumb but interesting movies of the 80s we've forgotten. Tank Tor says, yes, going through some of the weirdest discoveries he made during his research would be fun to watch. There were so many weird movies I discovered and learned about that I didn't know about before. Some of them that I tried to even watch for this, but could not get a hold of. Like A Night in Heaven looked really strange. And I read the plot synopsis and it seemed like, for a movie that looked so silly, it seemed like weirdly serious. Oh, The Heavenly Kid looked bizarre. Yeah, there were a bunch of weird ones, like Heavenly Bodies seemed wild. American Anthem, which is the one that was like from the director of Purple Rain. But I think it was about like gymnastics. Oh yeah, I didn't get around to watching this one, but it looked funny. Quicksilver, the Kevin Bacon like bike messenger movie. Ruskies looked funny. Born American, about like Americans who get stranded in the Soviet Union and are like running for their lives. A lot of wild stuff. And then again, I've said this before, but just so many teen sex comedies like Where the Boys Are and Mischief and Joy of Sex. Like movies that are like fully forgotten. And this is where you tell me that they're not forgotten, that actually these are classic movies that I'm just a fool and wasn't aware of. Eric Riley says, I love how thorough this is, really great. Only pushback I would offer is for round 3 on music. In Elvis Mitchell's doc, Is That Black Enough for You? He talks about how the music synergy you're talking about actually started with the boom of blaxploitation films in the 70s. I'd definitely check out his doc, super informative. Great work as always, Patrick. I have not seen the documentary. I was not aware of this. I mean, like, I'm aware of, obviously, like, the soundtracks to blaxploitation movies, but I will just say that in the research that we found, it was generally Saturday Night Fever that was pointed to as the direct influence, that the movie that was cited by other people in Hollywood as what they were directly influenced by with their strategies as far as movie soundtracks go. Maybe Robert Stigwood was influenced by what was done with blaxploitation movies, but again, this is what the various books and scholarly reports and essays that we were looking at said. And so blame them. Blame those other film scholars for why this wasn't included. Okay, more people talking about Sweat. Oh, Stuart Stone says, I'm glad they let his dad chime in on 80s politics because any misgivings Americans have against Reagan is lip service compared to the well-earned disgust Irish have towards Thatcher. His mom would have gotten the vid demonetized, I'm sure. You're probably right. I will just say, you know, obviously my mother is no fan of Margaret Thatcher. She was also, I think she came to the U.S. I think in 1980. So she was basically not in Ireland for the whole Thatcher period. And obviously she was like aware of what was going on, but I can imagine she was also like relieved to like have some distance and separation from all of that. Okay, this is so much writing. I'm not going to read this whole thing. AWAX Yimbizas says, military history pedantry incoming. In the politics round, I think Top Gun getting... Okay, apparently there is a bunch of real-world context and influence for Top Gun that I am not aware of. And so there you go. It just didn't come up in my research. Anyone who wants to read this, there's some interesting history and context there. Top Gun still would not win if we adjusted the scores. So, and that is it. I apologize if I seemed kind of grumpy about people, you know, getting annoyed about movies I left out. But like, look, if I'm being perfectly honest here, the truth is that this video was incredibly hard to make. It took a month and a half of my life. And after like working for that long on something, it's like kind of annoying to have these comments where people just basically ignore all the work I did there and just complain about why didn't you mention this one movie? I know I brought this on myself. This topic was always going to lead to comments like this. I knew this was going to happen. It's still like mildly frustrating though. I hope despite all the stuff I left out or overlooked or chose not to include. I hope people did enjoy the video though, because I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Thank you as always for sending in questions. You know, these are always a lot of fun. Yeah, again, if you want to submit questions for future videos, join the Patreon, go to our Discord server. There's an Ask Patrick channel. I'll cover all the questions there. Reminder that Night of the Coconut vinyl soundtracks are produced and on their way to the warehouse and about to ship out. So you can order them right now. Look at this beautiful thing. Also, all the ones in the warehouse are the special edition that are signed by Brian and I. So look, I got to do a plug here. And anyway, that is it for now. We have one more video that will be coming in December that has already been filmed. Incredible. It is much shorter than the last one. And look, everyone, thank you for your support. Thank you for watching. I'm excited about the stuff that we have planned for 2023, and for those of you who celebrate Christmas, have a Merry Christmas. It's the most wonderful time of the year. I love it. I'm so excited to go see my family tomorrow. It's gonna be great. Anyway, I've been talking for a while. I'm tired. I'm gonna go pack my suitcase and go to bed. Good night.